We're in Proverbs chapter 25. We're going to look at verse 1 again. We ended up last week on verse 1, but really we ought to just make mention of it today. This is not a proverb, but it is beginning a new section of the book and explains where these particular proverbs came from and actually when they were included in the book. Proverbs chapter 25, verse 1. These are the Proverbs of Solomon, which the men of Hezekiah, king of Judah, copied. So they're the ones that put them in here. Evidently, there were the Proverbs of Solomon that had been written somewhere and not compiled in a book, but they had been written somewhere. And so at this point in time, which is over 200 years after Solomon died, 200 years later, we get to the days of Hezekiah and in his reign. And so you have scribes or whomever are copying down these proverbs, and they will be included in the book. And understand, and you probably already know this, that the book of Proverbs is in different sections. There are different sections. Just chapter 31 is a different section. Chapter 31, just because we're discussing it, chapter 31 begins the words of King Lemuel, the utterance which his mother taught him. All right, that begins another section there. Now we're in chapter 25. Solomon wrote so many proverbs in his life, wrote so many songs in his life, like 1,003. It's a very strange number. But evidently he was obviously he had wisdom, and he was like his father, very creative in this way. He has 2 Psalms in the book of Psalms, whereas David has approximately 75. Anyway, all right, so let's go to verse 2. In this section, going from verse 2 to verse 7, does concern kings. All right? Now, they're not all one thing, one unit, but they're grouped together because they do concern kings. The first is this: it is the glory of God to conceal a matter, but the glory of kings is to search out a matter. All right, does God conceal things? Yes, He does. He will even conceal them in the Word of God, and there's a lot that He has concealed. There are prophecies that no one knew they were prophecies. No one, or you have things that are stated that have no idea what that actually means until we get in time and then we see it played out. Then suddenly, now we know what that meant. All right, just by way of just some mysteries. All right, now we know what it means, but when David wrote Psalm 22, he couldn't have known what it meant. He couldn't have. And we have others coming through time. Until we get to the crucifixion, you can't really know what it means. Such as Psalm 22, verse 16, "For dogs have surrounded me, the congregation of the wicked has enclosed me, they pierced my hands and my feet." That sounds poetic, but that's literal. That is literal. The congregation of the wicked has enclosed me. They literally pierced my hands and my feet. I can count all my bones. They look and stare at me. They divide my garments among them, and for my clothing they cast lots. Now, when I can't believe I said that. When David wrote this, all right, they pierced my hands and my feet, that would have no meaning whatsoever. I don't think there was anyone in the days of David that had an execution by way of nailing someone to a cross. All right, that would come later. It didn't originate with the Romans, by the way. I think it was with the Persians. But in David's day, you wouldn't really know what that means. You would just think that's poetic. And for my clothing they cast lots. That's what does that mean? Even if we apply it to some kind of poetic language, what does it mean? Well, it's literal. That's the meaning. That is the meaning. And was that concealed for centuries? Yeah, it was. Right there in Psalm 22. We can look at plenty of others if we wanted to take the time. But I just want to show some things. Let's go to Zechariah chapter 11. Zechariah 11. And here's another one of those things. Once we get into the New Testament, you know what it means. But if you don't have the New Testament, either because it hasn't arrived yet in time, living in the Old Testament days, or you deny the New Testament and you will have nothing to do with it, such as modern day Judaism, you can't know what this means. It is a permanently locked door, but the key is in the New Testament. So Zechariah chapter 11, beginning in verse 12, then I said to them, if it is agreeable to you, give me my wages, and if not, refrain. So they weighed out for my wages, 30 pieces of silver. And the Lord said to me, throw it to the potter. That princely price they set on me. So I took the 30 pieces of silver and threw them into the house of the Lord for the potter. That makes no sense at all until you know what occurred with Judas. That makes no sense. Why would, what's this princely price? Princely price of 30 pieces of silver. That term princely price is sarcasm, by the way. And also that he is a prince. He's about to be king. And then throwing the 30 pieces of silver for the potter in the house of the Lord. Throw it in the house of the Lord for the potter. That doesn't make any sense. All right, that makes no sense. But when we know what happened with Judas, we know how this was fulfilled. And one could have read this through people reading this through the centuries, teaching Zechariah through the centuries, couldn't know what that meant. All right, it's hidden, and hidden in as people reading it, having no idea what it meant. But the idea was when this came to pass, then and everything being recorded, then we would know, oh yeah, okay, that's from Zechariah. Or oh yeah, that's from Psalm 22. And did Jesus, and we spoke of this on Sunday, did Jesus speak in parables? Yes. Yes, he did. And he explains that it is hidden to those, it is a separation of the wheat from the chaff, is exactly what it is. Separate those who actually want to follow him and believe that he must be the Christ. It's going to separate the wheat from the chaff, the wheat being those who they believe, and the chaff being those that it's just a casual thing, that it's not that deep with them. And some will want to find out, what does that mean? Others will say, it's a difficult saying, who can understand it? And they walk away. They can't be bothered. All right? And if someone of extraordinary importance, such as the Christ, says something and you don't understand what it means, you probably need to take the time to find out. Now, in their day, they could ask him. In our day, we have the biblical text, which is we don't have to ask. It's given to us. We don't have to ask what the parable of the sower means. Christ, it's revealed. It's given right to us. But notice, it's the glory of God to conceal a matter. He will conceal matters. It's the glory of kings. Here is that of nobility, And it's not just for kings to do this, but kings will, in fact, look into things. All right? They will, in fact, put somebody on trying to solve a problem, or put someone to try to figure out whatever the mystery is. They will put things into it. But we have in 1 Peter chapter 1, beginning in verse 10, I'm just going to summarize this. Of this salvation the prophets have inquired, and also things which angels wanted to look into. All right? So there were things, this salvation had been concealed in the Old Testament. There was going to be salvation. It was going to be someone born of a woman. It is someone who's from Israel, but other things are hidden deep. Other things are there. And that the prophets did not know what the meaning of everything they wrote. They didn't. They are being told word by word, and they put it down. But does that mean they understand everything about it? They don't. They wouldn't know. Just like I made mention concerning David. Did David know he was prophesying about the crucifixion of Christ? I'm not sure that he did. I don't think that he actually knew. The words are given. He writes them down. They're inspired. They go into the book of Psalms. And you have where angels are not told everything. There are things that angels would want to look into, in the past anyway. And angels, to this very second, are ignorant of a hidden matter. What does that matter? To this very second, angels are ignorant of it. When the return of Christ, when is it? When's the day of judgment? They don't know. They can't know. It is kept even from them. Of which Christ said when he was on this earth, Matthew chapter 24, when he was on this earth, he said, of that day and hour, that distant day and hour, no one knows, not even the angels of heaven, my Father only. Which means he didn't know. When he was on this earth, he didn't know. Now, does he know now? I don't know. I can't, that's a question that's not answered. And maybe it isn't and I'll discover it at some point, or someone can point it out. But there are still matters. There's one major matter that has been concealed. Now, here is one that it wouldn't be the glory of kings to search out that matter, because that's a grand waste of time. You can't. And also, what you're saying is that God can conceal it from everybody else, but not from you, and that somehow you have made Jesus, you've made Jesus a liar, not somehow. You have made Jesus a liar, of where he says no one can know that day. All right, no one can know it. So there are things that are concealed, and we were told from the beginning of this book, Proverbs 1 in verse 6, we're told from the beginning that and it is to help us, this book is to help us understand a proverb, enigmas, and the riddles of the wise. All right, and this is a book that can help you do that. But it can't just be a cursory read or just a casual read. It's going to have to be applying yourself, going into it, and finding these matters out. And as we have pointed out on a number of occasions, there are some things that, some proverbs that they're just cut and dry. They're straightforward. But there are others that take a little bit more time and take more consideration. Now, we come to verse 3. Once again, this is connected to kings. As the heavens for height and the earth for depth, so the heart of the king is unsearchable. Now, this does not mean ever that kings are infallible. Ever. We can learn that pretty quick by Saul. Saul starts off good, King Saul. He starts off pretty good, a little bit confusing as to what he thinks he's supposed to be doing, because basically it's been declared he's king, and he's not doing anything. It's only when war must be done that he does spring into action. It's only then that he springs into action. And so while David is the best of all earthly kings, he wasn't infallible no, he was not infallible. He had his own problems, and he brought it on himself. And this just, let's discuss what this means. As the heavens for heights and the earth for depth, so the heart of kings is unsearchable. All right, his decision, the final decision, the final judgment, you may not be able to anticipate. You may not know what direction this is going. You may not know at all. And that there may be a decision for good. It could be a decision that's heading for evil. It could be a decision unexpected, but there's providence behind it. Now, every single one of us can be used providentially. Every one of us, and we are. All right, everybody is used providentially. Everybody. The faithful, the wicked. Everybody is used providentially. That doesn't mean there's no sin on the earth. It doesn't mean wicked can't be wicked. But everyone is used providentially. But when you're talking about kings and their decisions affect many, many more people than you and me. All right, their decisions can kill. Where there's going to be a war, there's going to be death. All right? There's not going to be a war, that just saved lives right there. You don't know how many lives that just saved. A decision to go to the right, and that may be precisely unexpected, and perhaps the king himself didn't know he was going to do that until the last second. But providentially, God wanted him to go right because of certain things coming down the line. Okay, now I'll bring in Alexander the Great. All right, Alexander the Great from Greece, Macedonia. He is the beginning of the Greek Empire, prophesied in Daniel, and prophesied that he would in fact destroy the Medes and the Persians, and the Greeks would reign for a while until that fourth kingdom comes, which is the Roman Empire. But that the way he is described and the Greeks are described as taking the Persians, it was basically he's coming swift, he's coming strong. He's described as this male goat that its feet doesn't even touch the ground. It's just going extremely fast and defeats the ram. All right, the ram is the Medes and the Persians. All right. Now, speaking of providential, and I think that this may be an example of it, of a decision made at the last minute that proved a victory in a specific battle. And it was where Alexander was squaring off with Persians, and there he's on one hillside, they're on another hillside. You're talking about thousands of men and horses and chariots and the like. And there is some sort of stream in the middle, and he just looks at it, and at the last minute he changes his formation, just at the last minute, and that proved to victory, is what it did. That proved those last minute, and it was last minute decisions. Those last minute decisions proved that he won that battle, hands down won that battle. Did God want him to win that battle? Yes, he did, because prophecy said he would. And by way of a larger, we can go into a bigger picture of the providence of God, that guess what language God wanted the first century to have as a common language. Now this is prior to the first century. This is setting things up for the first century. What language did he want to be over the Middle East and the Roman Empire as the common language? That if you didn't speak Latin, if you didn't speak Hebrew, if you didn't speak the Gaul, whatever they were speaking, if you didn't speak these things, if you spoke a different language, you would more likely find someone who spoke that. What's the language? Koine Greek. All right, that didn't come from the Persians. That didn't come from the Romans. It came from the spread of Greek culture by way of Alexander. Okay, and the New Testament is written in Koine Greek because God chooses that one. The Holy Spirit chose that one. And that is a language that's going to be locked in time. And modern Greek is not like Koine Greek. There's a lot of differences. And Koine Greek being locked in time means that the words don't change. They don't change at all. Just a few weeks ago, Jackie pointed out that of what does a mean, reading from the Old King James, what does a mean man, what does that even mean? Well, that's Old English. The word mean man today means someone who's just not nice. He's grumpy, or he's just, you don't really want to be around him. All right. But a mean man from 1611 meant common man. That's what it meant. All right. Our language changes. Koine Greek doesn't. Okay, well that's enough. That's enough of that. But I just want to show that God can use and will use kings for His own purpose, even when they don't even know it. I seriously doubt Alexander thought he was doing the will of God when he was doing this. Maybe he had been taught it. Maybe. But more likely it was for his own selfish ends, for his own glory, for building up what would become his empire. He is called the Great for a reason, and he was. But God can use, and we can see God using Nebuchadnezzar and Cyrus and so many others of kings in particular, but we could also look at just basic individuals, such as Joseph, who was never a king. He becomes very powerful, but he's never a king. But the providence of God works through him. All right? And I think that's exactly what we are talking about in here concerning this. That Proverbs 21:1 states, God turns the hearts of kings. And in Exodus chapter 14, verses 3 and 4, God uses a particular king to continue to show His power upon the earth. And that was Pharaoh in Exodus. And Pharaoh, God is playing him. Pharaoh's making his own decisions, but God is playing him. And Pharaoh could have said at any point, I've had enough. All right, enough is enough of being stupid. Okay, it's time to just count the losses or dismiss it, and we go on. All right, but he doesn't. He is in God is, it says, God hardened his heart. And we find out how God did that. He didn't have Pharaoh on a chain and just pull him along, but he did play with Pharaoh's arrogance and with his hard, he was already had a hard heart. He would play with that of his greed and for power and glory and all of that, because having Israel, well, he had a powerful resource. These are skilled people, and he can use them however he wants. And they're building these cities, is what they're doing. And who knows what else they're doing. And God uses Pharaoh in all of this. But we can also see where God uses, we've already mentioned Saul. And matter of fact, it is said that Saul was given a different heart. We also have in Daniel 7 in verse 4 that it's speaking of Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar given the heart of a man, and that God can work through rulers, and they may be doing things to their own mean or to their own sort of ends, but have no idea what the actual ends are. That God has a different plan for that. Something else entirely. Okay, so now we go to verse 4. Now verse 4 and verse 5 go together. And this too happens to be with kings. Take away the dross from silver, and it will go to the silversmith for jewelry. All right, now that can hold by itself, but it goes with the next verse. That can hold by itself. You have silver. What is dross? That's impurities in the silver. It's not that the silver's tarnished, is you don't have pure silver. Something else is in there. All right, it could be, just name whatever you want. It could be iron. It could be copper. It could be sand. I don't know. It could be anything that is, you don't have a pure bit of silver. So it all has to be heated up, melted, and then the dross will separate. The dross just means impurities, things that are not silver. It separates. You skim that off the top. You make it as pure as you can. Now you have something that can go to the silversmith. Now you have something that can actually be useful for something beautiful, something valuable. When silver has impurities in it, it doesn't have the same value as a chunk of silver with the same weight, a pure silver at the same weight. It doesn't, because one has impurities, one doesn't. All right, so this has to be purified. Then it's worth something. Now it can go to the silversmith. Now it can make jewelry. And we come to verse 5. Take away the wicked from before the king, and his throne will be established in righteousness. Okay, so we're making comparison between the two. And there is a comparison. You take away the impurities, the dross from the silver. You take away wicked advisors from before the king. And that could be friends the king does not need to have. Or it could be official advisors that are not advising him very well at all. You take them away. Kings can be influenced by friends, by wicked advisors, and therein is the dross. You take that out, and what do you get? If a king is around the righteous, a king is getting good and wise advice, then his throne will be established in righteousness because he's listening to them. Now, we go to Rehoboam. This book would have been written for Rehoboam. It would have. Now, other sons of Solomon may have read this as well. Should have. But what Solomon writes, he writes for his son, the next king, which is Rehoboam. Just because you wrote it doesn't mean you're going to follow it. Just because you read it, many have read it to this day, doesn't mean you're going to follow it. But Rehoboam is a very good example of someone he followed bad advice, bad counsel. He had the choice of, here are the men who advised his fathers. They advised his father, Solomon. They're older men. They had been serving with Solomon. They're still alive. Then you have those that grew up with him. They're of his generation. All right? These are two different sets of advisors. He just, he might as well not have gone to any advisors at all. Just do what you're going to do because that's what you want to do. All right? And Catrice will tell me that. I'll say, what do you think about this? She'll tell me, and then I'll just, okay, well, I'm going to do what I want to do anyway. All right? I hear your advice and I reject it. Or I hear your opinion and I reject it and do what I want to do anyway. All right, well, that's precisely what, now when she agrees with me, she's got it. It's like, you are the one. But with Rehoboam, he might as well have just done what he wanted to do. He just wanted somebody to affirm it. All right, the older men, they didn't affirm it. They give him something else. The younger ones, they affirm it. Yep, that's what I wanted to hear. We're going to do that. All right, well, that was bad. And the kingdom would never be the same because it is going to be torn in two. And you've got Jeroboam and the northern kingdom of Israel, and Rehoboam gets half of what he had. And as far as land is concerned, he still has Jerusalem, and he has everything to the south, and he will never have the glory that his father Solomon had or that David had. Never will. Nor would any other king who came along have that. And of course, I'm not talking about the Christ. The Christ has that and more so. But so take away the dross, take away the wicked, and you can have a man who's going to have a good kingdom. And we come back to verse 3, as the heavens for height and the earth for depth, so the heart of kings is unsearchable. You make sure that the king has good advisors. Make sure he has good advisors to help him making that decision, and making sure he doesn't have wicked influences. Now, we come to verse 6. Verse 6 and 7 sound exactly like what Jesus says later. And yet, there's a lot of things in the book of Proverbs that sound exactly, just different wording of what Jesus would say later. All right, verse 6, so do not exalt yourself in the presence of the king, and do not stand in the place of the great. Once again, this can stand on its own, but it's connected to verse 7. This could stand on its own. One is, first off, it would be a good idea to begin with. Don't exalt yourself in the presence of the king, or anywhere, really. Don't exalt yourself in the presence of the king. It's best to be humble. All right? Let him or whomever exalt you. Let him do it. And don't be seeking it, which is precisely what Haman thought. Going to the book of Esther, Haman is asked by Ahasuerus, what shall the king do to the one he really wants to honor? And in Haman's mind, who else would he want to honor than me? And then he gives, this is what you need to do. Riding on the king's horse, wearing royal clothes, robe, whatever. Someone shouting out the reward of the king here to this particular person, and he envisions himself on that horse. All right, well, it just so happens the king wasn't going to exalt him. It was Mordecai, and which is exactly who Haman didn't want to be on that horse. But don't exalt yourself in the presence of the king. Don't stand in the place of the great. Luke 14, and we have 8 through 11, When you are invited by anyone to a wedding feast, do not sit in the best place. They had, now, even to this day, there will be a wedding, and you may have some sort of banquet or supper after the wedding, and there will be a table there that is for the wedding party. All right, bride and groom obviously there. Best man, maid of honor, and all the others. Maybe you've got the parents up there, you have all that, and you as just a guest, it would be best not to go up there and sit next to the bride. All right, you may be a friend of the bride, but that seat may not be for you. And you have the bridesmaid who comes over wondering, well, who is this? All right, and so here you have of don't exalt yourself. Don't do this because you're setting yourself up for embarrassment. You're going to be embarrassing everybody, but you're setting yourself up for embarrassment. And verse 7, for it is better that he say to you, come up here, than that you should be put lower in the presence of the prince whom your eyes have seen. You're going to be humiliated. Luke 14 and verse 11, for whoever exalts himself will be humbled, and he who humbles himself will be exalted. All right? If you just went ahead and went to a lower place that's for everybody else, you didn't get embarrassed. If you were meant to be there, you didn't be embarrassed as someone had to correct you. All right? And if they ask you, all right, come up to this place of higher honor for today, okay, that's not embarrassing either. That's not humiliating in the least. All right, you are being exalted by someone, and okay, don't ever think that this sort of thing doesn't exist today. It does. Yeah, it does. Of people who have just assumed something they shouldn't be assuming. All right, and that they just think, of course I'm the one among the honored. Of course I'm the one that should take this place. Of course I'm the one that should do it. Well, maybe not. Maybe it's a grand assumption, and you're absolutely wrong. Now we go to verse 8. Do not be hasty. Now we're done with kings for a bit, but do not be hasty to court. For what will you do in the end when your neighbor has put you to shame? Now we continue on. Debate your case with your neighbor, and do not disclose the secret to anyone. Verse 10, lest he who hears it expose your shame, and your reputation is ruined. All right, what is this saying? Well, it's very similar to 1 Corinthians chapter 6. Is it 6 or 11? I get these. It is confused in my mind at the moment. I'm going to go to 1 Corinthians. And it is having to do with taking, chapter 6. Yeah, taking a brother to court, that these things should not be aired in public. These things should not be broadcast in public. It should be kept on a very, very low level. All right. These problems can be resolved. And the first bit of this, don't go hasty to court. All right. That Matthew 5 and verse 23, agree with your adversary quickly while you are on the way. Keep this, if you can keep this from being public, do so. James 5 and verse 16, confess your trespasses to one another. And here is debate your case with your neighbor. And so you speak one-on-one is what you do. You speak one-on-one. If there's something that needs to be discussed, something that needs to be debated, all right, maybe going to that person one-on-one will help, and to where this can be solved or resolved without going to court. And honestly, talking about the hearts of kings are unsearchable. Well, the hearts of a judge may be unsearchable too. Or the hearts of 12 jurymen be unsearchable. You don't know what the outcome in this may be. So resolve it if you can. Resolve it. And because it could very well bring something out into the public you just don't want out. It may be something that you wanted to maintain tightly, and it's not. You go to court. It's not going to be. It's going to be public record, and others are going to know. And I'm just going to, just as a sidestep, just in talking about it, I tell you, it would be terrible. I don't have this problem. You would know it. It would be terrible to be a very famous person. It'd be terrible because your life, especially if you were someone that paparazzi wanted to chase and reporters wanted to get the dirt on you, whatever dirt, because dirt sells and they have no conscience. They don't care if it destroys your life. They don't care. They get money. That's what they get paid to do. And it would be terrible if to be someone that was just famous and you couldn't have much of a private life at all. That would just be a terrible thing. And if you think about it, there are certain things you can do that someone of extraordinary fame can't do. They can't do it because no matter where they go, they're going to draw a crowd. Everybody's going to recognize them, and they're going to draw a crowd. Okay, now that has very little to do with what we just read, verses 8 through 10, but it is keeping these matters as closely as you can. All right. Now, what it's not teaching, and we'll just read the first words in verse 8, do not go hastily to court. All right. Now, the whole thing is about something you did. All right. It is not about someone who has done you harm. That's not what this is about. It's not about someone who has truly broken the law, and they do need to go to prison. All right. It has nothing to do with that. This has to do debate your case with your neighbor. Okay. Something is being said about you. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. I think in the instance in this, it is true because your reputation will be ruined. Now, we come to verse 11. And in these next verses, we can't get through them all today, but in these next verses, it has to do with words that are spoken. And we're coming into a lot of similes. We've been going through similes right and left, but here we're going through a number of similes. Okay, verse 11, a word fitly spoken is like apples of gold in settings of silver. We go to the next one. Like an earring of gold and an ornament of fine gold is a wise rebuker to an obedient ear. Now these are similar. They are similar. One is getting more specific about a wise rebuker to an obedient ear. But a word fitly spoken, well, that is a word spoken in due season. That is right when it needs to be said. That's Proverbs 15, verse 23. And here is words that are spoken, that wise words that are it is the right thing that need to be said exactly when it should have been said. All right, it was just perfectly in place. All right, this is like apples of gold in settings of silver. All right, now I'm not going to get too deeply into this, but there's debate over commentators, I guess, of what does this mean. All right, it doesn't matter to me. All right, it doesn't matter to me because the meaning doesn't change. Are these real apples that are golden color or a different fruit? And is this like it's on a silver bowl? or is this actual gold in the shape of an apple in a setting of silver? That doesn't matter. That's getting bogged down in something that is irrelevant. Get the message. Get the lesson. The lesson is when something right is spoken at the right time, it is beautiful. Now, we could think of this, if we go with the literal gold and the like, we could think of it very similar to what Solomon did in the temple, of where you have this ornamentation on the pillars that are pomegranates, and there's like 200 in going around the tops of the pillars, and this network, which I'm not exactly sure what that means. In my mind, I have it kind of like garlands or like maybe chains with other things. I don't know. Really don't know what that word network means. But we could think of it like that, of these beautiful things made out of gold. And so here is this gold apple. It's like apples of gold in settings of silver. It could be like that. And we need to stop here. We'll do we'll look at verse 12 next week and speak a little bit on these similes. And it's a Hebrew poetic thing. Similes are not, but we're going to show a construction that's here. I hope I remember to do it. And so we'll need to call it a day for now. And thank you, everybody.